Welcome, lovers! I don't know what I'm doing, but you probably already knew that. And it's been a while since I've done my things I don't understand, so I decided I wanted to do another one. I finally found the list I had initially made with all the stuff on it, so I can finish doing that today because boy do these things bother me. I'm gonna start with what is probably the least bothersome of the list, which is people who say that cartoons are only for children. I don't understand this concept. First of all, cartoons are made by adults. And if they weren't passionate about it, they wouldn't be doing it. Second of all, most cartoons, at least recent good cartoons, have tackled a lot of adult themes and have, been interesting enough for adults to watch. Most cartoons, even like old cartoons, were either made specifically for families, like adults and children, like Scooby-Doo, or like some of the original I think it was Tom and Jerry? Something of that sort. A lot of the really, old ones from, when war was happening, they were made specifically for adults. And that's not even getting into things like, hentai. It doesn't make sense to say cartoons are only for kids when they're made for literally a broad enough audience that it's everyone. They're made for everyone. What? How narrow-minded are you? So you're gonna tell me not to watch something with a really interesting plot line, some silly stuff in between, and some very adult content just because it happens to be a cartoon? No, thank you. The next thing I'd like to talk about is people who say, oh, if you don't remember, then it wasn't important. This bothers me so much. First of all, somebody told me this when I was a kid. I don't remember who, but people started saying this to me when I was a kid. And I don't know if you know this, but kids, for the most part, have terrible memories because their brains are not finished developing. So telling them that if they don't remember, it must have not been important is very presumptuous and frankly idiotic. Humans do not have control over what we do and do not forget. In what world does it make sense that the only things that we ever forget are things that are not important? Not to mention the fact that there are a whole lot of people in the world who just straight have memory issues like myself. My particular mental illnesses, one of the side effects of them is issues with memory, both long-term and short-term. There are a lot of people out there who have bad memories because of getting physically injured or other problems of that sort, not to mention the fact that humans in general are forgetful and our memories are unreliable. I couldn't tell you the amount of times when I forgot the most important of things, no matter how hard I tried to remember them, but then for the life of me couldn't forget shit that I didn't care about and that didn't matter. I'm sure that there are people whose brains do work like that. And those are probably the people who say this, but assuming that everyone else in the world have brains that work the exact same way that yours does is stupid. I hated so much growing up, and even some recent times when people would say, oh, then it probably didn't matter when I said I forgot something. And I'm like, no, I know it mattered because I know at least to some degree what it was relevant to. And that matters. It's kind of like when people talk about what they learned in high school. Everybody remembers the mitochondria was the powerhouse of the cell, but nobody remembers anything we actually needed to remember. Well, not nobody, but the majority. At least when it comes to the American school system. I don't know about other places, because I haven't lived other places. And in the same vein as that, the people who like to say you only remember what you want to remember, which is just as stupid as the first statement. And what drives me even more insane is 9 times out of 10, the people who said the first statement will then follow it up with the second statement. Like, those two things don't go together. It's like, oh, you forgot, must have not been important. Oh, by the way, you only ever remember things you want to remember. That does not go together. Like, I want to remember the things that are important for me to remember because they're important. But if I forgot it, and it obviously wasn't important because I forgot it, what kind of backwards ass logic? And again, human minds, our memories are unreliable. This is basic information we learn at a young age, is that our brains are unreliable. Our memories change with how we feel now versus how we felt at the time. Most of our memories are not exactly what actually happened, which is why a lot of the times when you go to look at a video of something, stuff will be different than you thought it was. We and our brains are imperfect. Like, it just doesn't make sense to me how people can legitimately believe that. Anyways, moving over into a slightly more serious topic. The people who think it's okay to destroy someone else's property. Now, this particular one has different variations of it, but it's the same point. We'll start with the most common, and probably the most obvious, people who break up with their significant others and are mad at them, and think that makes it okay to take something of theirs, like an Xbox, which is expensive, and just fucking break it because you're angry. I don't give a shit if you think they deserved it, if you think they're an asshole, if you think that they can't do better than you. I don't care. You do not have the right to destroy someone else's property. If they were a shit ass to you, if they were terrible or a cheater or abusive, they will get theirs. But if you decide to break their personal property, the only thing you're doing is getting yourself in trouble. Like, first of all, most of the people who do this, the people they do it to don't actually deserve it. Because the people who do stuff like that are because the people who do that are typically kind of fucking crazy. But even if it is to somebody who would deserve for their shit to be broken, that's illegal. They can sue you. Not only can they sue you to get you to pay them back for what you broke, but they can tack things onto that, like you having to be the one to pay for all the court fees because it's your fault that they're in court. You having to pay for emotional damages of them losing something that is probably very precious to them, etc. I don't know a ton about law, but I know that much. That's not worth it. And you'll probably think, oh, they won't do it. They don't have the balls or they don't have the guts. And I'm like, first of all, you're wrong. 99% of people have more than enough gall to do that. Second of all, even if they don't, that doesn't mean somebody else won't. It is perfectly possible for someone who is close to them to get on them enough about needing to do something about what happened that it'll happen anyway. Not to mention the fact that by doing stuff like that, you're just announcing to the world that you are a fucking psycho. I don't mean to use the word psycho loosely, that's just because the term has become so mellowed down, it becomes hard to not just use it. Sorry. But you've also absolutely increased the likelihood of people deciding they don't want anything to do with you anymore because they think you're crazy, or that you'll do something like that to them, or that you're a terrible person for doing that in the first place. And now we'll move on to the Karens. Those lovely, terrible, absolutely horrible people in the world who are so entitled that they have decided that if you make them upset in any way, shape, or form, even if you're doing nothing and they just decide to be upset, that they have the right to destroy something of yours, or to physically touch you, or to attack you, or to report to the police that you did something you didn't do. Obviously, I don't need to go on and on and on about this one because everybody knows what a Karen is. But still, it falls into the category of the people I just can't fucking understand. Kind of like when people treat you like you're fucking stupid for not knowing uncommon facts. It's just, I don't get it. What? Did you just drag your ass on my blanket? Scarlett! Did you just drag your ass on my blanket? Oh, I'm gonna have to wash that later. And the last thing that I'm gonna cover today are people who like to take blanket statements and use them frequently. But when somebody gets offended at a blanket statement that is offended, their response is something along the lines of, oh, well, obviously it's not talking about you, even though it's quite literally a blanket statement. But then they turn around to a completely different blanket statement that isn't even fully a blanket statement because it says some or most, and then they'll get completely butthurt and freak out and, oh my god, this is so fucking terrible and harmful, and yeah. I'm gonna take the one that I see most often, which is the whole kill all men thing. Now, a lot of you probably think that it's a joke or a meme or just something that is said on the internet nobody actually means, but you're wrong. You're very wrong. I have seen way too many women, and some men actually, treat it as if it is an absolute need. So me and a few other people were talking about how men experience terrible things too. They experience stigma and trauma and all that kind of stuff. And then this person decided to come on in and just start shouting at everybody. Well, they wouldn't have to worry about it if they were already 6 feet under the ground. Well, if they didn't want to deal with it, then they should just be 6 feet underground. Well, it's their fault for being men. And tell me it was a troll all you want, because I know sometimes they are trolls. This guy was not a troll. He was vehemently defending his stance to the point that he was trying to use facts that were not facts and saying the human race can survive without men because women can be impregnated without men, and like going into detail about all the reasons why men should just stop existing. And it's ridiculous. It's fucking ridiculous. And the thing that I see most often is people saying stuff along that line, like all men should be dead, kill all men, fuck all men. Blanket statements that are terrible and harmful and absolutely fucking ridiculous. And then when a guy comes and says something about it, about the fact that it is harmful and ridiculous and what the fuck, people like to go, well, obviously, if you're not this particular kind of terrible man, it's not talking about you, so don't get offended. You're a baby. You need to man up. What the fuck? You are using a blanket statement. That means it covers everyone. You didn't specify rapists. You didn't specify absolutely terrible, horrible, abusive men, which, by the way, women can be rapists and abusers as well. They just love to forget that, don't they? But they just feel the need to attack someone for trying to defend themselves. But then as soon as they come across something else, like, what's a good example? Here's one I saw the other day. Some women are effing crazy, which is true. Some women are crazy, some men are crazy, some women are not crazy, some men are not crazy. It's not a blanket statement, but those same fucking people who decided to freak out on somebody who's trying to defend themselves against an actual blanket statement starts freaking out at whoever posts that sort of thing and says, this is harmful, you're terrible for ever thinking this or saying this, you should go die because you're being hurtful to all women, and do you see the problem? Like, I can honestly not comprehend how in the fuck someone can think like that. Like, it's not just backwards logic, it's like fucking reversed. It makes no goddamn sense. I can understand that some people are just hateful people. You want to hate men? Fine, I can't stop you. But when you start saying shit like kill all men, which by the way is something a fucking terrorist would say, then I have a fucking problem with you. Like, what the fuck is wrong with these people? It's like, whether you like it or not, men and boys are people. They have souls and feelings and thoughts. They are sentient. They are people. What does it matter that their genitals are different? Like, how the fuck can you treat them like parasites when they're just... Most men and boys are just trying to live their lives, just like women and girls and anyone in between, because, you know, there are people in between. There will always be terrible men, just like there will always be terrible women. There is no group of people that exists without the good and the bad. The only thing you're doing by blanket statementing is cause more problems, honestly. The only way to work towards a better world and to actually solving the problems of the world is to work together to weed out the people who are actually problems. Like, the complete lack of understanding and common sense and just the capability to think critically in so many of the people who say things like this and react like this is astounding. And I just don't fucking understand. I don't get it. So that's gonna be the end of this video. That's all I had to say, and that was very therapeutic. If you want to come for me in the comments, I don't care, go ahead. I stand by my words. But anyway, that is it. I hope you enjoyed the video, but if you didn't, that's perfectly okay and perfectly understandable. If not, hopefully I'll see you in the next video anyway. So until then, I hope the rest of your day and or night is just as lovely as you are. So, bye-bye. Are you a genie? Because you make my wishes come true.